Hi, my name is Jeff H. Sipe, and I have over 10 years of recruiting experience, including 5 years at Google. One of my YouTube subscribers asked me to do a video on common interview mistakes. And so I wrote it, I rewrote it, and ultimately what I came up with was there's only one item that really matters to uncover our specific mistakes, not some long list of mistakes, and that's practice. And so, what this video really focuses on is if you practice, you will uncover the mistakes that are specifically challenges for you. They're your mistakes and your mistakes only. You might never consider showing up late to an interview or chewing gum or not using positive words because these items are super obvious to you. What practice uncovers is the mistakes that you might not be aware of. They might be common or uncommon, but if you don't practice, you'll never really know. And so before we dive in, I found a quote I really liked. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. If you like my content, please like. If you have any comments, please comment below, especially on common mistakes. And if you like my overall content, please subscribe and hit that bell to get new notifications. Item 1, taking your time. If you want to stop watching the video, please just hear me out on this singular item. If you have one takeaway, this is the foundation for success, and everything really streamlines from taking your time. Your brain cannot process all the information and provide the best answer if you're just answering right away. And so taking our time does require practice because it feels unnatural, but this is a very, very common mistake. And companies ultimately don't hire people that have a quick answer, they hire people who have the good answers. Item 2 is restating the interview question, a very common topic for me, and it doesn't matter how basic or complex the question is. This allows your brain to start working and start thinking and putting the words together, and sometimes it is about focusing on the specific words, like how do you measure success? You would want to focus on the word measure. You would want to focus on the word success. And this also confirms to your interviewer that you're answering the right question. And lastly, this allows your interviewer to correct you, adjust, adapt, add additional details. So it's really, really important to restate, and not restating actually causes a whole string of mistakes. Item 3, questions. Have you ever seen advice that says keep it conversational? Yes, you've seen that probably everywhere, right? And questions truly, what they're going to do is they're going to show thought process, and then secondly, they're going to sometimes narrow down the focus. So good questions will pique your interviewer's interest to say, yeah, I really like that item, let's focus on that. Because interviewers want to see how you think, they want to interact with you, and ultimately they're trying to envision you in the role. And so the way this shows up in open-ended questions is you ask a lot of questions to get at the root of what your interviewer is asking, and again, sometimes that will narrow your focus. And then the way that questions really show up in behavioral, and a big mistake people make is they make an assumptive in the question, and it might be tell me about a time where you had a conflict with a stakeholder. Great question, Jane. I have 2 stakeholder examples, one with an internal stakeholder and one with an external stakeholder. Is there one you want me to focus on? And Jane might have been thinking external stakeholder the whole time, and just by asking that very, very simple question, you are really getting to the root of what Jane wants to hear. Remember, these interviews are two-way conversations, and if you're not asking questions, it's not a conversation. Lastly, with questions, just got to plug this, you have to ask questions at the end with each interviewer if there's the time. The easiest way to not get stuck, not forget, come in with a list of questions. They'll probably cover some during the interview, but it just gives you a list and you don't even have to think about it. Item 4 is organization, and this is an awesome segue from the first 3 items because by taking your time, you're organizing your thoughts to come up with a more clear and concise answer. By restating, you're making sure you're organizing your thoughts to answer the right question. And then by asking questions, you're narrowing down on what your interviewer wants to focus on and really honing in on that specific data. These 3 items will help you stay super organized to start. And then when we talk about organization in general, it is really chopping the amount of time down that you're speaking. And then secondly, it's really about chronological order. And order is super important for organization and one of the items that's really overlooked and a huge mistake. So if you're answering open-ended questions, for example, you want to start with what you would do first. So let's go back to the how do you determine whether a program is complex or not? Well, the first place you're going to start is historical data. You're not going to start with the shared vision or the budget or the timeline. You're going to start with historical data because that's going to give you insight into how much budget you might need, how much timeline you might need, etc. And so if you're answering behavioral questions on the other side, chronology and order really helps you with your actions. Because if you're just saying, oh, I did this and I did that, well, there's no order to that. You want your actions to be in very, very specific order. I did this first, followed by this, because that's what tells the story. You don't want to spend a long time on the situation. Your story should come out in the actions. Item 5, body language. When you practice, especially face-to-face or via video, practice is going to show some mistakes that you are definitely not aware of. Like you're not making eye contact at all. You're looking away. You're fidgeting. You're crossing your arms. You're biting your fingernails. You're tapping your pen. And some of this might be very unconscious behavior. So that's a great stepping stone. And then you might be not aware that you never smile, or you never just have that great connectivity to an answer. So what do you need to do to just implement more smiling, like really get connected to how you're answering? Practice will really help you get better with your body language and how you show up when you go on site or when you're on video for these interviews. So ideally you are practicing in person, but video is just really convenient and really easy. Either one is going to be great for you. Item 6. So this one's kind of interesting. It's overall speech mechanics coupled with positivity. And so a couple of big ones that come up with my clients are pace. A lot of them talk really fast. They're trying to get their answers out really fast. And then at the end, they're kind of like, okay, and so the result was, and they trail off a little bit. And so you want to slow down and you want to finish your answers definitively and have a clear delineation of the end of your answer. These 2 items pop up a lot. What pops up sometimes too is you speak too formally or too informally. The other item that comes up is pitch and tone. So my pitch is pretty even, my tone is pretty even, but I'm slow. I'm intentionally slow. So if you were speaking with me, you'd probably want to slow down a little bit. So mirroring in terms of pitch and tone is really critical. And then lastly, just your words. Practicing can show a huge mistake of you're using the word problem a ton and you just want to replace problem with opportunity. So using positive words, of course, it's critical, but the practice will show this is a mistake that you use or you don't use. Lastly, again, one more item to just throw in there is the amount of ums or likes or just your little ticks and pauses that you have. That's just going to be natural. You're going to have these ticks, these pauses. Don't worry too much about that, but maybe you can limit them a little bit with practice. So I just want to throw in some bonus tips at each stage of the process. So quickly for the phone interview, make a practice call beforehand. Make sure your cell service or your Wi-Fi for Google Voice is really good in that exact spot and that your earbuds are working and very clear. For a video interview, practice using the software beforehand. Test it with another person and then be right next to your router. Make sure that you were in a great Wi-Fi spot. Multiple times at Google, we'd have a video interview. I'd be interviewing a recruiter and they'd say I couldn't get the video to work. That's an instant no. You had to make that video work right to get the job. And lastly, for the on-site interview, if you are a local candidate and you have time like a week or 2 before the interview, practice driving to the spot, where to park, where the building is. Why wouldn't you take that practice item? Because it's a huge mistake to show up late. And that's a great segue into, you will read a lot of articles, watch a lot of videos that say, don't show up super early. Absolutely, show up really early. Just don't go into the building until 15 minutes beforehand. That's the max amount of time you want to show up. But you actually want to show up to the physical location or close to the location maybe an hour beforehand. It just will alleviate a bad accident, a subway breakdown, any of those items. I really hope that this helps. Remember, everyone has different mistakes. And the only way you're going to truly recognize your different mistakes is by practicing. And the practice will help you identify what you personally need to work on, not a long list of mistakes that somebody's listing out that might not actually be challenges for you. I really hope this video helps. Have a fantastic day. Thanks.